So let me welcome you to our 22nd film in our series Pattern of the Month. Today it's been sunny and 0 degrees. We're in the middle of the winter and we long for this season, 2022. Hopefully it will be a season that we'll remember for all the big fish we caught. And we normally start by doing this, big flies for the early season. I've been tying so many big flies, so I was thinking today I'm gonna do the total opposite. I'm gonna tie a few of those micros, a few patterns that work well for me, and I'm also gonna show you, maybe I can start with this, how we put it on the leader with a little plastic and let the fly just slide down like this. I will do one of the flies, show you this exactly when we're done with the tying. Small flies. I think there's a couple of things that we actually do all the time. We fish our flies too slow and we fish too big flies. Doing my master class schools, I've been often saying that when you look in your box, pick one size smaller. And the reason is that I think that, or I can ask you the question, how many times do you think the fish don't take the fly because it's too small? And how many times do you think it doesn't take it because it's too big? I think they reject our flies way more often because they're too big. So that's why I'm saying pick one size smaller. Today I'm gonna tie my favorite micro fly, and actually I found this. I'll show you. I found this old mag, trout and salmon, 28. What is that? 13 years ago. A Swede on the Dee. I fished the Dee more than 20 years, and I found out, bragging a bit, being quite successful. I think the key here is that I fish smaller flies than most. Very small flies, tiny flies, even for the springers. And the pattern that's been best for me on the Dee is the fly that I call Dee Sheep. And Dee Sheep is actually a version of the Black Sheep, which is an Icelandic pattern. For me, presented first time actually by one of the heroes in our world that's no longer here, fishing upstairs, Mr. Nathaniel Reed, former president, minister under 5 different presidents, and the guy that took me to Canada to fish all the Gisbay rivers and the Miramichi, and he's a good friend that's no longer with us. But the Icelandic Black Sheep, where I twist the colors, turned into the Dee Sheep that given me most of my fish on the Dee actually. So the way I tie this is that I tie on our extra small tubing. I'm gonna do 3 different patterns here. I'm not gonna use the green. I'm gonna use a clear one, a black one, and a yellow one. And I'm gonna start doing the Dee Sheep, and I do it on fluorescent yellow excess tubing. And I start by cutting a piece, and then I melt so I get a little edge, and this little edge will hold the material so it doesn't slip back. And then I just put it on the needle, make sure it's secured. I'm gonna tie with different threads too, greasing a bit. I'm gonna start with black 12-0 thread. And the important thing when it comes to these small flies is that you don't use too much thread. And I just take a few turns close to that little burnt edge. And today this is going to be very simple tying, but maybe there are a few small tricks to remember on how to make a small fly that actually swims as good as the bigger flies. And I'm going to start with a bit of yellow here, and I used the very soft, very short hair. And I think it's important now not to take the longer hair and use the tips, because the tips are straight. Even the fly is small, I want it to be drop shaped, and I need a little bit of tapering in the hair. And I cut this away. See how small it is. And the key to do a small fly is to start small. If the first wing is too long, the fly to be tapered needs to be too big. And I put it on, flatten it out a little bit, and just tie it in. 3 turns. This fly is going to be maybe 20 mil. I fished them down to about 8 or 10 millimeters of the longest hair, and cut close, sharp scissors. And then I take one strand, of, here we go, of angel hair. I of course use the SSS angel hair, and I do it from the Clearwater blue, and I'm gonna pick one blue strand. And one of the good things with this mix is, come on now, is that we have all these different strands in each mix. And I take this and I tie it in a little bit on the side, a little bit longer than the yellow. Then I take the strand and I move it over to the other side. Move the thread, put 1 or 2 turns, and put it back. Cut it off. Oh, here we go. This way I have 2 strands on the side of the yellow. And I don't need to cut it off, meaning that's a bit too long, meaning I can't pull it out, so it's going to be really strong. Okay, so then I'm going to put a hackle on, and you know, those of you who've been watching me tie know I hate false hackles. The reason for I do that is that I want the fibers to stand out from the feather like this. But when I tie very small flies, either I can do this, I can take the super soft little feather that you can see is attached to the soft here. But there are very few of those. And this is a fast fly to tie, and I want to have a lot of them. And I do this, I take one side of them and I actually do a false hackle. Look how many fibers I have, and then I just pull it off. I take this and I will divide it a little bit between my fingers, and then I will press it to the tubing from the underside, and I tie it in. That way I will spread hackles, even if they're few and they are soft and short. I will spread them so I don't have just one little bunch of fibers. Oh, it's hard for me to see here. I'm older than last time you saw me tie. At least a month. Okay, so then I'm gonna put on the main wing, and I use body fur from Fox, and if you're lucky you have one that is fairly long and is tapered in a nice way, and it's very easy here to take too much, and it's very easy to tie a too big fly. What I do is I take this out and I do the same. I take them and I taper them, meaning I pull out a few strands, so I'm sure I have just a few long strands. I can do it a little bit more. And then I take this and I tie it in on the top. And make sure to use half the diameter of the tubing and tie it in. Looking so I cover the yellow. I don't want yellow to be seen. The yellow should be underneath. And what I do with my flies, I told you many times, wrong scissor. I'm so used to use the crooked one. So when I take one of the straight ones that was here, I can't cut like this. I need to lift my elbow. You get used to this. Crooked scissor is my favorite. Anyway, I cut this off, twist it a little bit and cut it close. And if I have a little bit of soft material here, it doesn't matter because it's so soft. Citus again, jungle cork. Use one with small feathers, and I use tiny feathers, and I pick one. These are straight in the middle, but I treat them the same way, even if they're small. I pull them over my thumbnail, shape them before I tie them in. Make sure now the jungle cock goes maybe 1/3 of the wing or so. Get nice proportions. The fish will not swim up and say, hey, that jungle cock is too long. But a fly with nice proportions looks better, and it's always more pleasant to fish a fly that you are, that you are happy with. Like that, looking good. Even if I don't have any light this side, do the other way, the other one the same. And normally I twist twice, but I'm not going to do that. Get this out of focus. I look and I make sure they're the same length, and I do 1 or 2 or 3 turns. And if the jungle cock, like here, coming a little too high, I can take my nail and I just push it down a little bit. This is like 1/2 mil or so to get it to be right where I want it to be. Okay, done. Look at the shape of the fly. You see that you have a few fibers, a very long thin wing with few strands here that will swim. And it was actually on the Dee Sheep that I found my way of thinking on why the cone is good on a fly. Why a cone will divide water and create turbulence. So on this one I'm going to do micro turbo. When I first fished my first Dee Sheeps, I didn't have any micro turbos. There were regular cones, but still the regular cone is bigger than the thread, meaning it will move more water. Okay, and a little bit of glue, and I can either do it on the thread or I can do like this. Oh, a lot of glue here, a new one. And I just put a little bit here, and I take my thread and I move some of this. Make it 1 or 2 secs, cut it off, take the fly out of the vise, which is easier, and then just press down the cone. And if we've done it right with few turns, we can now press this down very tight. down towards the hackle and the wing. And the little fly is ready. And I pull this out, cut it about 2 millimeters. I don't need more plastic on this tiny little fly. And I just take this and I melt it down. It's good. Oh, a little more. It's so easy tying, but there are a few small things to think about doing these flies. And you can see this that I tied here now is, oops, twice the size, let's see, than the smaller ones I have. And does it really matter? 10 or 20 millimeters? And I would say, my experience says yes. That's a big fly on the Dee. This is more the normal size of fly I fish. Also, depending on that the Dee is a shallow water, shallow river, you will get the fly close to the fish. Well, that was the Dee Sheep. Super cool little fly. It's given me many fish both in Scotland and here in Sweden and in Norway, Russia, all over. Good overall pattern that works especially on a cloudy day. But nobody's hoping for a sunny low water year, but let's see what we should fish if we have one of these really clear days on maybe a clear river, clear and low. I do the same. I use the clear tubing. Actually, I use quite a little bit of clear. Most of my tubing I use is our fluorescent fits colors. I changed to our stealth thread, and this is an amazing thread. I think it's let's see, you can barely see it, but it's super flexible, meaning that if you are tying tiny flies with very little material, this is what I think the thread to use. And I do the same, put on a few strands, do like this. Oop. Shouldn't do like that. You see, it's invisible. We'll see. Marcus, who's cutting these films for us, he's maybe so evil he will keep that in the film. Who knows? Anyway, now it's here. Okay, so I'm gonna do the clear water fly, and I'm doing 3 micros, and I'm gonna do them a little differently, just to show you. And this is gonna be like a silver and silver. I'm gonna use one of the teal feathers. And I have a little trick that I use when I use them super small. Is what I do is that I pull back like this, pull back the fibers, and then I cut away the center and keep this. If I do this, I can tie this in, take away a little, make it easier for you to see. I can tie this in as a full circle underneath like this, and I will have fiber spread. Take away so you have as much as you think you should have. Hold it in underneath and just secure it with a few strands. If this now is too long, so I have too much fibers, I can just pull this and I pull it out a little bit to get this little hackle to be as long as I want it. And the reason I take away the center is that that's going to be too bulky, otherwise I want this to spread, the hackle to spread. That's why I do this. Be careful now, because I don't see the thread. Tie that in, take a little bit of natural gray hair. And the thing is, when you tie flies for this crystal clear conditions, on the low water, I think one of the reasons we don't catch fish is that the fly will scare the fish. So to tie in a wing big like this is not the way I want it. I want very, very few strands. And I take them and I pull them out, tapering the same, tie them in, press them down, tie in the wing, cut it off, make sure it's not too long here now, so I don't use the thread on too long a piece. Then I can take one pearl angel hair, here we go, and I can do the same I did on the last one. Pull it in, take it in, tie it in, 1 or 2 turns, move it over to the other side. Here we go, you can hardly see it. Move it over to the other side and tie it in. I'm going to do something very odd here now. I'm going to tie a fly without any jungle cocks. This is all it's going to be. Just a few strands of hair, little bit of hackle, and then, which is not very common for me either, organizer too, but with our regular cones. I mostly use different kinds of turbos or half turbos. But the good thing with the regular cone is that it's quite heavy, meaning that on a fly that is this small, I will get a little weight, and the weight will help me to stretch the leader. And those of you following me knows that I think it's all about collecting as many meters of perfect drift as possible to stretch the leader, especially fishing it on a clear river with maybe 5 meter or even 6 meter leader. Those last 3 meters is super important. So I do it like this, and let's see if we can take a little bit of glue, not too much here. Put on a little bit, use support 1 or 2 turns. Just make sure it's secured. Oh, wait a minute now. Here we go. And then I cut it off. I can cut it a little bit away from the thread, from the where it's tied in, and then I pull it down. And again, simpler to do this with the fly out the device. Looking so the hackles are spread. Pull it down 1 or 2 millimeters. Here we go. Hold it up and just melt it down. Maybe that was a little too much. Yep. Take away a little more. Sorry. The comb is sliding a little bit here. That's why it was too long. And the tubing will secure the cone. And what happened here is that I tied a little tiny little fly that is extremely translucent with few fibers that will disappear in the clear water. Okay, so now we did this very translucent clear water fly, but if you have to pick one color, what color of a fly to pick? I met a guy down in Argentina. He said, when I asked him what fly to fish, he said, either you fish a black woolly bugger or a woolly bugger black. Black is the thing. It's very, very easy here with the same techniques to make a black wing with or without jungle cocks and a black hackle. If you do it on fluorescent orange fits, you will add a little bit of fluorescent and it will be like a fire ass or a red butt or those kind of flies, and it's a super effective fly. I'm gonna tie another one. I'm gonna tie a version now of the black wing with a little green in it, but I would say you need to fill up your boxes with the black fly too. So let's do one more fly. I'm gonna tie this on the black extra small fits, and I will do a very simple version of a fly I call black green helmet. Normally I tie it the classic style with a turbo or half turbo. I'm gonna do this. Now I need a black thread again, or I can use the stealth too. It doesn't really matter. Stealth, the good thing with the stealth thread is that it actually disappears. So I do the same, put on some thread, and on a normal black green helmet I do a green underwing. I'm not going to do this now. I'm going to do this extremely simple. I'm just going to take a few strands of black hair, make sure I take it away to create the translucent wing, take the soft part away, tie it in fairly wide, use half the diameter of the tubing, a little more thread maybe, and I twist this a little bit so I can cut it close. I take a little bit of our Greenland green angel hair. Where are you? Disappeared from me. Here we go. Come on now. There we go. And I tie it in the same way. One turn, twist it over, and tie it in. Cut it off. Back on the tiny little jungle cocks. And pick 2 feathers. You can see how this is curved the wrong way. I curve it over my thumbnail. And to make things easy for me, I always start with the feather on closest to me. And I tie it in. A little bit too high up. Use my thumbnail to press it down, hopefully, and cut. There we go. Good? Yeah, it's good. Good enough. And I do the same with the other one. Curve it over my nail to make it follow the wing, and I make sure it's the same length, and I tie it in. And that was not superb, and this is sliding up, and look at this, and it looks good. Little bit of thread, pull out the little jungle cock piece and tie it off. And now I'm gonna do, it's a little too narrow, but it will open up when I pull this a little bit. Looks good. Okay, so now I'm gonna tie in a hackle the regular way, and I use a soft hackle. And the problem with the soft is to find the fibers that are actually short enough. But I do it the same way as I do on all my hackles. I just create a little triangle and like this, and I tie it in, and I tie in underneath. And then I take this, and most of the time I do it with my fingers, and I pull back the hackles, doubling the hackle, making sure all fibers coming one side of the center and tie it in. Try to be accurate here. I do that, and then I just take a little cone, and on, I would say, all flies where I use a hackle that's tiny and all around the fly, I use a turbo. And a little bit of glue. And this is, I hate those when they're new. They're dangerous. Use support, put a little glue away from the fly. Take the thread and pick it up. If there's a little bit too much, I will press that down with the cone, and if I turn the cone, I will spread the glue. Take it away, because the thread will be in the way for the cone. Take the fly out of the vise, press it down, press, press, press. Cut it off. Hold it up and melt it down. And now I tied you 3 different micros here. And the tying is quite simple, but if you think about these small adjustments in tapering and hackling and proportions, you will get flies that will swim better and to my knowledge, catch more fish. So here they are, 3 good ones. The Dee Sheep, the silver and silver, very translucent, and this little black-green helmet version that I actually gave me quite a few fish last summer. Quite big if you look at the tiny ones, and let's see if I have some super tiny ones. Okay. Here was one that's even smaller, but 1/3 of the size. And remember, we have our thinking on what's big and what's small. The fish feed on herring this size, but they are also used to feed on insects 3 millimeters. So in the insects perspective, these are big flies. In our fly box, they will be fairly small. I hope you like this, even though it's not complicated. I hope that I gave you a few ideas on what to think about when you tie these small flies. And don't be shy to fish the tiny fly. It saved me many times. So with this, I would like to thank you for watching this, our 20-second film. And you heard me say it before, next month we're gonna do something totally different. And stay strong, tie on, and see you in a month's time. First you just slide down the this is a little paragorva, you slide it down, and then you slide down a piece of plastic. Either use our extra small or small fits. Then you tie on the hook. And the thing with the knot is that the knot can slip here. It can make the hook go the wrong way. So that's why I use the plastic for. I have the plastic and I pull it down, pull it down over the knot. So this way the fly comes out the right way all the time. And the little micro will slide down and fish like this.